Welcome to a series of conversations called My Lourdes Story, where I'll be talking to various people about their Lourdes experience and what Lourdes means to them. I'm Joan Cahill, and I've spent a lot of time over the last few years in Lourdes, a place that is very special to me. I'm talking today to Gerry Gribbon. Gerry was born in 1937 in Belfast and has been travelling to Lourdes since the 1950s. So thank you very much, Gerry, for talking to me today.
Thank you very much, Joan. Great to meet you and great to be with you today. And I love that you two are a Lourdes person.
Absolutely. So before we talk about Lourdes, Gerry, will you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Okay. Well, I'm the youngest of a family of 9. I have 4 brothers, 4 sisters, mum and dad. We lived in, however, in a wee 2-roomed house in the Falls Road in Belfast. We were a very poor family. My dad was a flax rougher in the mill, worked in the Opera House at night in Belfast, the Grand Opera House. He was a dresser there. And in turn, we all got jobs in the Opera House. And I used to walk across the stage with a curtain boy. It was very rewarding. I loved it. My father was a half-timer. He was born in Lambeg outside Belfast, where the Lambeg drums come from. He went to school there and worked in the mill. And he worked a day in the mill and a day in school. That's where the half-timers did. So he was doing that from his 11-year-old. And then they moved to Belfast. My mother was a South Armagh woman. She was from Bestbrook. She was a disciplinarian in the house. My dad was a very quiet man. But my mother got to give you a scalp with a tea towel, you know. She never missed. But she was a great lady. So between them, they had 9 of us. And my 4 brothers, my eldest brother was an invalid, John, most of his life. So he never worked. He had no schooling or anything. Frank was next and he was a bricklayer. And Michael was next and he was a bricklayer. Molly was next and he was a painter and decorator. And I was the baby. I became a carpenter and joiner. They all did very well. They worked up and built their own businesses up eventually, you know, and did well. I turned my taste elsewhere and didn't do so well. They were very forgiving, you know, after I stopped drinking. They took me back and we moved on from there. So I grew up in Belfast and I went to St. Paul's de La Salle School, the Becker Monastery. We had a brother there from the Midlands, brother Anthony McCormick. I pray to him every day. Beautiful man. A man, the quality of his life was unreal. His spirituality was unreal. Even when the canes and straps would all go then. But if he had to slap you, I saw him cry many times at his desk. He was just a beautiful soul. And he was with us through thick and thin. You know, I had a great privilege of, after he retired, and he went to Beneven College in Dublin to retire. And we'd go to see him, and then we brought him up back to Belfast for a holiday. We got many secrets from him about his life and about all the things. Yeah. But he was a very, very holy man. He had great spirituality. And every day in the prayers, you know, he would tell us wee stories that when he was a young brother during the war, he was in Belgium. And many times there was no food on the table. But there'd be a glass of water at every chair. And they'd walk around to their place and they'd say the grace before meals, and have the glass of water and the grace after meal, and go out to the grounds for a walk. And, you know, he told us about their hardships. And it was very like our own, because we grew up as they were very poor. Yeah. And we paid our weekly rations around the wee shop around the corner. And it was a great experience. The McMahon family, the 2 sons priests. Gerry was a Dominican, just died 3 years ago out in Africa. And Father John, he was in the Belfast Diocese, the Antrim Diocese, down in Connor. And he's dead now also. But when you were in the shop, my daddy used to start up at 6:30 in the morning. And we would be sent rounds at 6 o'clock to get fresh bops and a quarter of a pound of butter. The rations were on then, you know.
At different times, really, wasn't it?
Oh, it's unreal. I mean, it's just unreal.
Yeah.
Mrs. McMahon used to shout at us and give out. The first thing she said, she had her hair right down her back, and they slept upstairs. So she had her hair over her shoulder here, and she'd be combing it. Did you say your prayers? Not yet, Mrs. McMahon. Come up here. And she brought you up to the end of the counter. And you would see this whole litany of prayers. And I knew you were going to get into a row when you get home because it was so long. And then she would say, you got a quarter pound of butter 2 days ago. There's 11 of us and they a quarter pound of butter. You know?
My goodness. Your own family then, you told me that yourself and your wife fostered over 30 children over the years. Talk to me about your own family then.
Well, my first wife, Claire, died when she was 37. I was left with 5 children, 4 boys and a girl. The youngest was 4.5. And Gerry, my eldest son, God rest him, was 11.5, 1 and 12. So it was a very, very difficult time in our lives. I had to try to keep working, trying to rear a family. I belonged to the fellowship that got me sober. So the ladies in it taught me how to cook. I had 4 big sisters, so we never had a cook. The boys in our house, there was a competition every weekend for who could bake the best cake. So we brought all our friends in, you know. So I never had to do anything like that. And then all of a sudden, I had to learn how to use a washing machine. And so at weekends, when all my children were born, there was an order, religious order in nuns in Belfast. The Sisters of the Assumption, or Lady of the Assumption. They have a place in Dublin out beside I forget the name of the order now, but they're on the south side of Dublin there. But Sister Fergus was one of their sisters, and she came. My wife was always very ill when she was having children, and she came to look after Claire at home. During that time then, I got to know her. And indeed, my youngest son, Fergus, was called after her. She brought every one of our children into the world. So she was very good to us at that time. And her brother was a priest in Portlaoise, a monk, Father Fergus. So we got to know him. And from that time on till today, I belonged to Malay sisters up there, but I belonged to that family, you know. So they were extremely kind to me during my time in hardship. And I always brought, after Claire died, we brought all the family. I brought them all to Portland every Sunday afternoon after dinner, because I had an old pony there at that time. The kids could play with the pony, and I could go into the house and have a couple of hours reading or quietness myself or talking to one of the monks. So in the meantime, Anne, my present wife, came home from Uganda, and she was transferring into the Poor Clares in Belfast and had been accepted for them. So that happened. You know. Father Martin Portland, he was a terrible man. He's still alive. I think he's 97 now or 98. He's an old man, but a very, very wise old man. He used to tell Anne went working there at the weekends during her time she was waiting. And he said, you know, there's a fellow, Gerry Gribbon, comes down here every Sunday with his 5 kids. You be good to those kids because there's no mummy now, and have a nice meal for them ready, because he has to make the dinner and he'll be buttering me up, you know, that should have to go out of her way. So Anne started giving us very nice meals. And just in general conversation, we were talking about what music. Well, I love music of any kind, but mostly I like classical music. And Charlie Pride was just on the go then. He was becoming famous with his country and westerns and Crystal Chandelier. And he was coming to Belfast to midnight matinee in the Ritz. And I said to him, would you like to go to it? I said, yeah, it happened to be a favourite of hers. She has some of his records. So we went to it. And so the rest was
history. Exactly. And so yourself and Anne then fostered a lot of children.
Yeah.
Over the years.
She drew on my 5, and then we fostered 28.
Wow.
Oh, yeah, she got 33 and I got 28.
A fabulous thing to do, Gerry. And Gerry, I know you've been involved with the Order of Malta since you were 10 years old. And the first time you went to Lourdes, as we said, was in the 1950s when you went with the Knights of Malta. Can you tell us about that first visit to Lourdes?
Well, the first visit there was 1954. I looked it up to see when I was there. And I went 3 times with them. First time I went to Lourdes, it was beyond me. I had never saw the Order of Malta here in Ireland. The ambulance corps was a small thing. It was a very small thing in Belfast. In fact, 1954 was the first plane to leave Belfast for the Knights of Malta pilgrimage. So I went in it there. So it was just pushing wheelchairs and things like that. And I was a young lad, 17 or something like that, I could carry on. I wasn't all that involved with the prayer life of it at all. That's the truth of the matter. But we kept together, and the things that happened was that I went for 3 years with them, and then after Claire died, I applied for a job here in Armagh, with the Education and Library Board as a building inspector, buildings maintenance officer, inspecting the schools. I was successful in getting it, and I was travelling up and down for the first year or two, and then we decided we would try. We had a family meeting, and we said, look, we'll go to Armagh for a year, and if we like it, we'll stay, and if not, we'll come back to Belfast. So at the end of the year, another family meeting, and they all had made new friends, and they wanted to stay. So we stayed in Armagh, and the kids settled into school, and Gerard travelled up and down to Belfast to work, as did Brendan. Brendan was a second son. He was serving same to the painting. So they did that, and in turn, I started going with the Armagh Diocese. And one of my colleagues in work, a young fella who belonged to the same fellowship with me with my drink problem, he took cancer, and I brought him. He wanted to go, so I brought him. And that brought me back. I was 4 times to the Armagh Diocese. I was beginning to get into a deeper spiritual way of living, and I wanted more out of life, more than what I was getting. Father Martin Ryan, he's one of our chaplains in the Order of Malta. So he asked me to go with them. And I remember saying no because I didn't have any money and couldn't afford a ticket. A sidekick of his name was Father Gerry Gribbon, who has since passed on. And Gerry was a very nice fella. He came back to me, Gerry Gribbon did, and said, Martin wants you to go because you can help with organising the sick. I said, Gerry, I can't go. I can't afford to go, so I'm not going. And he came back to me the next day and said, Martin has a ticket for you. He's got a free ticket for you. And I felt very embarrassed about getting a free ticket, to tell you the truth. I didn't know what to do when I got there because I was a loner going from Armagh on my own. So I went anyway. And I got enough from that to know that it was really a very, very special place.
Absolutely.
And at night, when I'd go down after closing time, maybe midnight, go down and sit in the wall, facing the grotto, and spend a few hours there. You've got a new insight into yourself.
You just feel as if you're in a special place, don't you, Gerry?
Yeah, absolutely. It's indescribable, totally indescribable.
Yeah.
I can never really express what you get. Sitting there, you see people lying on the ground, being carried, all different illnesses, praising away to our Blessed Virgin.
Yeah, with such faith.
And you know that they're getting something because you see their joy. And it's the joy that you witness there that keeps bringing me back and back and back.
Yeah.
And a lot of my foster children all came, the two that we adopted. We adopted Stephen and Laura, their brother and sister. And they've come a few years too with us. Yeah. But my own family, my third son, Paul, comes every year. My daughter comes every year. And she has 3 children. And her grandson, he's my sidekick over there every year. He's got his blue jumper and all the same as the rest of us now. When can I push Grandma? When can I push? So he pushes away now anyway. He's a great storyteller for talking to the old people.
All right.
He goes up and down the wheelchairs talking to them all, He's got.
And Gerry, I know your son Gerard has a special place in your heart, but particularly so when you are in Lourdes. Will you talk to us a little bit about Gerard?
Yeah. he's a lovely lad, a good lad, good heart, good soul. And he served his time. In fact, my tradesman that trained him also in the joinery. And he went into nursing, or an auxiliary nurse, or a nursing orderly in St. Luke's Hospital here. The joinery trade work was scarce here. And he went down there and he loved it to bits. And a patient in the hospital, St. Luke's Hospital here, it's a mental asylum, mental hospital, made an allegation against him. So the laws had just changed about protection and whatnot, and he was suspended while an inquiry was being done. And he couldn't hack it, He's in here every day. He lived not far from me, a couple of miles up the road. And he told me the first night that the police came to him about this incident that was supposed to have happened. And he said, "But Daddy, I didn't do anything." He said, "I can give you my word." And you know your own children. I know mine when they tell me a wee lie or they're twisting the truth. And I knew he meant what he said, and I knew it would be okay. But these things take a lot of time. And then it was going on so long that he was meeting some of his colleagues in the street, and they were more or less avoiding him. They didn't want to be talking to him or to be seen talking to him. And he was very broken-hearted about that, because I have a wee sunshade out in the garden, and I would go out there to read or pray or do whatever I'm doing. And he would come out there and we'd sit and have a cup of tea out there and talk. And he was telling me how bad he felt about it. So we were going to Lourdes. So we went off to Lourdes, and I remember saying to him, "I'll see you in a couple of days anyway, and sure we'll go out somewhere." And that day was our free day. In Lourdes, we went to Bertray, and we had a lovely day. We had the invalid bus, and we were taking a wheelchair on and off. And got back into Lourdes that night, and Father Gerry Gribbon, he was standing at the bus, and his parents were with us that year. So I thought he was waiting on his mum and dad coming off, but he came off, and I got the last wheelchair off. He said, "Gerry, I want to talk to you." I said, "What's wrong?" He said, "I have bad news for you." And he told me my son had died. So that was it. He came up to your room, he and Father Martin, and we had Mass in our room that night. And I'd say it was one of the worst nights of my life.
Yeah.
But it was one of, weather-wise, we got a flight to get home at 2:00 in the morning from Paris to London, and London to Dublin.
Yeah.
But it was certainly the hardest time in my life.
I can imagine, Gerard. And I'm sure Our Lady had her arms wrapped around you to give you strength to get through it.
Well, only for her, and we would never go through it. We would never manage.
Yeah.
So I spend a lot of time as a prayer thanking God for him.
Yeah.
And for the years that we had together.
Yeah.
And I know he's with his mother now, and she was a great girl, my first wife, Claire, a beautiful lady, and as was Gerry's great lad. So it was a hand-in match now getting through it. I'd say it was much worse than even when my wife died.
Yeah.
Because we were glad to see Claire die. Claire had cancer for 9 years, And thank God I was sober for 7 of those years before she died. At least she got a wee bit of quality back into her life again, And
you just don't expect a child to die, Gerard. It's very, very hard.
Very, very hard. Very, very. And I understand. As a result of that, Cardinal Brady, or Cardinal Emeritus now here, he's still working as a curate of
Is
the.
I didn't know that.
He's great. He's doing chaplain to this new seminary in Dundalk.
Oh, yeah.
And he's looking after Mother Teresa's nuns here in Armagh.
Yeah.
So
Jared had been in Lourdes with you, though, another time. Had he, Gerry? Gerard, had he been to Lourdes with you?
Yes. Oh, he was, sure. He was there. He was there at least twice. I think maybe 3 times he was there with us.
Okay.
And he was a great lad because he has a good sense of humour.
Yeah.
And he was good. He had a great voice. He's a lovely singer.
And he had the medical background as well, which was great for Lourdes.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah. He was also in the Knights of Malta too.
Right.
So,
followed in your footsteps then.
Well, he tried to. He wanted me to join the same as his dad. And he wanted the Knights of Malta the same as his dad. And I was looking forward. He came when I became a knight in the order. Nice. He came to that celebration and he said, "I'll maybe follow you there too, Dad, you know." So I showed him my sword and I said, "Well, that's here for you now." Yeah.
And Gerry, what is it about Lourdes that has been bringing you back for nearly 70 years? You know, what draws you back?
It's just, I think the main thing that draws me back is the love. The love and happiness and joy and peace that is in it. We come through, you know, my job now, I do clerical works for the diocese, inspecting the buildings, and you're working with builders and there's rows going on and argy-bargy. And I get enough peace out of my work in Lourdes that when I think of it every morning, and I have Our Lady behind me here every day, where I come in here to do my writing and things like that. And I talk with her, Lourdes here, Bernadette and Mary. And it just changes the whole quality of your life.
Yeah.
It gives me a peace beyond my understanding.
Yeah.
I know that I'm not, I've never earned it, that I get a special grace, and a grace is a gift from God, and it's through Mary that I get that. And you know, I brought a young man to Lourdes with me 30 odd years ago. I'm going 29, this is my 29th year with the Carmelites this year. So about 30 years ago, 28 years ago, I took him, and he was down and out when I met him. He was on the dole, he was on the brew, no what. We got on together and we prayed together and we worked and shared a room together, as we've done many times since. And he was making a wee bit of progress. He got a wee job and he got on his feet. And today he's a billionaire. He has a big ranch in Memphis, Tennessee. He has another big place in Malibu. And he gives me 6 tickets every year for Lourdes to give to people that need them.
Yeah.
I never cease to amaze his generosity.
Gerry, it's been absolutely lovely talking to you. Can I ask you before we sign off if you would leave us with a thought for the day? Okay.
The thought for the day that I'm going to say to you is the thought of the day for my fellowship that has kept me sober. And it's talking about calmness, and it tells calmness is constructive and good. Agitation is destructive of good. So I shouldn't rush into any actions. I should first be still and know that he's God. Then I should act only as God directs me through my conscience. Only trust, perfect trust in God, can keep me calm. And all around me are agitated. Calmness is trust in action. I should see all the things that can help me to cultivate calmness. To attain material things, the world leads us to attain speed. To attain spiritual things, I have to learn to attain a state of calmness. And we pray that I may learn to have an inner peace. I pray that I may be calm so that God can work through me. And that's my story to tell how God worked through me.
Thank you so much, Gerry. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you.
Thank you, love. Great to meet you.